The Emperor's New Groove was released in theaters on December 15th of the year 2000, making its 25th anniversary mere weeks away. The film has a runtime of an hour and 18 minutes as we follow the story of Emperor Kuzco and his misadventures as he is betrayed and turned into a llama. There was a direct-to-video sequel, Kronk's New Groove, which was released in 2005, and then a year later, a TV show called The Emperor's New School aired for a couple of years on the Disney Channel. I have not seen Kronk's New Groove, but after watching this, I think maybe I will watch it. And I was not a huge fan of the TV series. It was one of those shows that I would probably watch it if it was on, but I would desperately wish that something else better was playing instead. Like, similar vibes to how I felt about like Camp Lazlo or something from Cartoon Network. Anyway, I did always like the original movie, but it's definitely not one that I have rewatched very often, and I have not seen this in its entirety in at least 20 years, I would say. I thought about the waterfall scene the other day, and then when I saw it was nearing its 25th anniversary, I decided to give it another watch. I also really love llamas, so that just added to the joy. Kuzco provides fourth wall narrative throughout the film, looking back and telling us his story. We begin by seeing a lone llama all alone in the rain before Kuzco tells us that that's him, the once powerful and charismatic emperor. We cut back to see how he once lived as the opening song plays, sung by the incredible Tom Jones, who I love. This scene just shows us a look at Kuzco's life of luxury, ease, power, and inflated ego. Unfortunately, an old man throws off Kuzco's groove, and a guard, and the guards have really cool designs by the way, a guard throws him out of the very tall palace. I'll note that the heights in this film, as our characters traverse mountains, is very scary at times and just like very visually striking, I suppose. I'll also note now that Cuzco and his civilization are Incan inspired, which is very cool. And for the year 2000 especially, I feel like not a very common setting for large scale entertainment. The scenery and stylization throughout this film is beautiful and very aesthetically pleasing to look at. Cuzco kicks open a door with a resounding boom, baby, which I distinctly remember being quoted by either my siblings or classmates at the time. It's also kind of a callback throughout this film as well. Cusco is being offered multiple women to choose one to be his bride, but boy is picky and straight up savage in his assessments of them, and none of them are up to his standards. His exact words are, hate your hair, not likely, yikes, 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 and let me guess, you have a great personality. We are then introduced to Pacha, a villager who was summoned to the palace. He is a very kind-hearted person, and he encounters and saves the old man who threw off the emperor's groove. I really like the way the man defines groove, which is as the rhythm in which you live your life and your pattern of behavior. Honestly, don't mess with my groove either, like I get it. We then meet our villain, the Emperor's advisor, Yzma, who is quite devious and icky yet fabulous. She is elderly, I think it's fair to say, and she has a right-hand man in the form of Kronk, who is a great part of this film. He is a buff young lad voiced by Patrick Warburton, and I can't not think of David Puddy from Seinfeld anytime I hear his voice. I'll also add now that Kuzco is voiced by David Spade, Pacha by John Goodman, and Yzma by the legendary Eartha Kitt. An excellent voice cast. Okay, so Yzma is trying to usurp Kuzco's power, essentially, and he confronts her and fires her with all of the euphemisms for being let go that he can think of. After she and Kronk are kicked out, Pacha shows up and Kuzco reveals to him his plan to destroy Pacha's village to build Kuzcotopia. We get the origin of this legendary meme as when the sun hits just right, the hills sing. Cusco is demonstrated to be extremely selfish and uncaring about others. Yzma then is seething with rage at Cusco, and we hear that she is the one who practically raised him, which adds an interesting layer to their dynamic and gives more reasoning as to why Cusco is a bit morally reprehensible himself. She plots to kill Cusco so she can take over the empire. She and Kronk head to their secret lab, and we get the wrong lever scene. Why do they even have that lever? They take a fun roller coaster type thing and end up in their secret lab in their coats and glasses, which is super fun to see. The scene kind of gives me like Powerpuff Girls vibes aesthetically. Um, I don't know if you know what I mean. They decide to poison him at dinner. So, in addition to dinner, Kronk prepares the poison for Cusco, the poison chosen specially to kill Cusco, Cusco's poison, and eventually Cusco consumes the poison, but instead of dying, he is turned into a llama. Kronk had mixed up the potions. Yzma orders him to take the knocked out llama Cusco out of town to finish the job. The little angel and devil on Kronk's shoulders appear, and he wrestles with his conscience, ultimately choosing not to follow through with disposing of the Emperor. Here we see a zoomed out scene that shows a monkey eating a bug, and narrator Cusco asks, "What's with the chimp and the bug? Let's get back to me." And as I was watching this, I verbally said aloud, "That's not a chimp. Chimps don't have tails." Which is true, by the way. So, fun fact, chimps are apes, and apes don't have tails. Monkeys have tails, therefore, that was a monkey. Also, you don't really find apes in South America. There aren't any native species, so humans are really the only apes that are there. That was my anthropology degree kicking in. We zoom back in, and Kronk accidentally drops the bag that he has Llama Cusco in, and it ends up in the back of Pacha's little cart. Kronk loses him in the crowd, and Pacha ends up taking him back home. Pacha is the village leader and lives on top of the hill. We meet his family, a young daughter and son, and his pregnant wife, Chicha, whom I adore. Their kids are really cute, and in general, his home life is painted as like very warm and idyllic. It's just a very nice feeling to see such a happy family. Pacha lies to Chicha and tells her that he actually never met with the Emperor. He obviously doesn't want to worry her, but I don't like that sort of like protective, "I know what's best and I'm doing this to protect you" sort of lie. Equal partners would tell each other something so big, no? Pacha goes outside where he encounters Cusco, who Pacha calls a demon llama. Cusco does recognize Pacha, and then he realizes that he has been turned into a llama. They are both kind of freaking out, and Cusco orders Pacha to take him back to the palace. Pacha refuses unless Cusco decides to build his summer home elsewhere, but Cusco refuses and heads off into the jungle alone. He encounters a cute little squirrel who he's super rude to and immediately gets karma by falling into a jaguar den. Pacha is too nice and comes to Cusco's rescue. Pacha is actually shown to be quite strong and brave. There are some really impressive feats that he pulls off. The two end up getting wrapped around a tree that falls into the river below. They get knocked around while going downriver, and we get the classic waterfall scene. Uh-oh, don't tell me. We're about to go over a huge waterfall. Yep. Sharp rocks at the bottom? Most likely. Bring it on. They wash ashore and continue to argue. Pacha tries to talk sense into Cusco and seeks to see and find some good in him. Cusco continues to be extremely selfish and resistant to change. We then see Yzma and Kronk put on a whole dog and pony show for Cusco's funeral, notably which was on the eve of his 18th birthday. But then Yzma promptly says, "Well, he ain't getting any deader. Back to work." The palace proceeds to get Yzma-fied, and then we see Kronk starts acting a little bit fishy, and Yzma gets him to admit that Cusco is actually still alive. They decide to go track him down before anyone else can find him or before he returns to the palace. Interestingly, we see Pacha's kids having like psychic powers in that they're dreaming of the events that their father is currently experiencing. Chicha calms them and lets them know that he just went back to see the Emperor. It's the next day, and Pacha and Cusco have a positive conversation where Cusco says that he's changed his mind and they shake hands. We quickly see that that was insincere. While crossing a bridge, Pacha falls and is hanging on by a thread, aka by a rope, and Cusco reveals his lies and decides to leave him there. Again, he gets immediate karma as he then ends up in the exact same situation. The two end up fighting mid-air, and together they fall and end up trapped between two rocks above a swarm of crocodiles. They work together and live through an absolute nightmare filled with scorpions and bats, but eventually they get back to the top of the hill. They now have a 4-day journey ahead of them to reach the palace. Yzma and Kronk are in pursuit, and Yzma has a sweet little setup that Kronk carries on his back. Kronk continues to be very sweet and pure, and honestly, I kind of worry for him. He sees an exotic bird, and they encounter the squirrel from earlier. Kronk speaks squirrel from his days learning it as a junior chipmunk scout, and he finds out that Kuzco has been by, and the squirrel points them in the right direction. Everyone ends up at a restaurant where Kuzco is disguised as a woman, specifically as Pacha's wife on their honeymoon, which I think is kind of weird, but whatever. There are some hijinks here, people going in and out of the kitchen, Kronk taking over as the chef. I like Kronk trying to figure out where he knows Pacha from, mentioning high school wrestling, metal shop, interpretive dance. Kronk reveals that he supposedly has weak ankles, but my man is pulling off some incredible physical feats, so that seems kind of odd. Pacha and Kuzco get away after Pacha gets the restaurant staff to sing happy birthday to Yzma as a distraction. I love how happy Kronk is, thinking that it actually really is her birthday. Pacha lets Kuzco know that Yzma and Kronk want him dead, but Kuzco doesn't really believe him. They bicker and they separate. Kuzco then overhears Yzma talking to Kronk and realizes that Pacha was right, so now he is all alone and lost and regretful. This leads him to the scene from the beginning of the film, all alone in the rain, his dark night of the soul. We see Kronk waking from his sleep as he remembers who Pacha was, and it's a fun scene. As he says, "Oh yeah, it's all coming together." Kuzco goes to join a herd of llamas, but as he does, Pacha is there anticipating him and being very welcoming and forgiving, knowing there is good inside Kuzco. The two reunite and head to Pacha's house. Kronk and Yzma are already there, and they have fun interactions with his family. Yzma tells Chicha that she is Pacha's third cousin's brother's wife's step-niece's great aunt, twice removed. Kronk is jumping rope with the kids, and Chicha then sees Pacha out the window, and he lets her know what's going on. Chicha plans to stall Yzma as long as she can. She and the kids continue to be pretty cool characters. Yzma and Kronk eventually follow after Kuzco and Pacha, and the next scene shows their journeys to the palace, which are represented on a map. The wrong lever gag gets brought back, with Kuzco falling victim to it this time. The boys get to the secret lab and humorously are put into the others' lab coats. Somehow, Yzma and Kronk beat the others there, which, as Kronk states, by all accounts, doesn't make sense. Yzma stole the human potion that Kuzco needs to turn back into a human, and she owns him with her self-defined cruel irony, parroting back the words that he told her when he fired her. Kronk faces another moral dilemma, and Yzma emotionally tears him down. He seeks to take revenge on Yzma, which feels uncharacteristic, but I am happy to see him stand up for himself. He exits the scene via a trapdoor that Yzma activates. All of the potions end up getting mixed up, so Pacha and Kuzco just take them all and head on their way, as the guards that are after them then get turned into a variety of animals. Kuzco tries the potions, experiencing life as a turtle, a bird, a whale, and then eventually he is turned back into a llama. The action sequence continues, and there is a fairly epic battle on top of the palace. Yzma drinks one of the 2 final potions and is turned into a cat, which is perfect. The cat voice is amazing. She really holds her own and even has the upper hand multiple times. Eventually, Kuzco has a dilemma in that he has to choose between getting the human potion and saving Pacha's life. He chooses to save his friend. Kitty Yzma falls on top of a giant trampoline that was mistakenly sent to the palace, and she gets back up to the top where the others are with the potion. She drops it, and Pacha and Kuzco call back to their earlier teamwork and go back to back, climbing up the palace to retrieve the vial. Yzma actually retrieves it, but is then thwarted by Kronk, who conveniently opens up a trapdoor. Kuzco then drinks the potion. We flash ahead a bit to see human Kuzco in his palace apologizing to the old man that threw off his groove. Kuzco officially takes back his plan to build Kuzcotopia, and then Pacha suggests that Kuzco build on the hill next to his, and Boom, baby! We have him right next door to Pacha's family. To me, I felt that that was a rather intimate commitment to make, living that close to each other, but we see a miniature Cuscotopia being used as a birdhouse for Cusco's new house. And then Cusco has fun with Pacha, goes swimming with his family, and it looks like Cusco has been accepted as a part of their family. Chicha made him his own llama adored poncho, and like I said, he's just having a good time playing with the kids, etc. They are all happy in the hilltops. We end seeing Kronk as a scout leader to the local children, with the squirrel teaching the children how to speak squirrel. Also part of the troop is a cranky kitten Gizmo, which we love, and it's just a nice happy ending to the film. Overall, I can say I really liked this movie. It was funny, colorful, and ultimately quite positive. It demonstrates how one can grow and how living life in different shoes and seeing different perspectives can help you expand compassion for others. While I think it's a fun movie and worth watching, I would say it's a light flick rather than something to build a large emotional bond with, though I could just be speaking for myself. The characters are distinct and varied, and I like them all for their own selves and purposes. Cusco is a terrible person at first, but he is a likable protagonist due to his humor and comedic, mostly unserious nature. In his defense, he seems to have grown up completely spoiled, but also with a weird, jealous, and resentful maternal-ish figure in Yzma, so he would obviously be a little off psychologically. His positive change speaks to how impactful positive relationships can be and what a profound effect they can have on someone. His relationship with Pacha, a good and kind person who is reliable and offers support and second chances, allows Cusco to form a positive bond to another. I really am a bit confused as to how to define their relationship, and I didn't know the exact age difference when I was watching, but apparently Pacha is 45 and Cusco is just turning 18, which would hint at like a father-son dynamic between them, but I don't think that's what we really get. It definitely ends up as a relationship that's stronger than just friends. They consider each other family, and I guess that's all we need to know. Still, I just didn't feel the full emotional resonance between them. Pacha is pretty straightforward, I feel, and as I have mentioned, I like him. He's very strong, he's brave, his family is very cool, and they just all seem to be salt of the earth good folk. Yzma is interesting. She is described multiple times as scary beyond reason, but I also feel she has an appeal and glamour to her. There's probably more to her character that this short film doesn't allow us to see, and I think that that could be a very interesting thing to look into. Like, screw the Emperor's New School, I want to see a Yzma origin story. Finally, Kronk is great, and I really might have to watch Kronk's New Groove. I love how the film ends with him being a scout leader and living in closer alignment with his true self, and I like how Yzma is stuck there as a kitten and is part of the group. I like that he hasn't totally abandoned her, and I hope for her to be rehabilitated similarly to Cusco. 25 years on, this movie remains a unique classic that is definitely worth the watch. I would love to hear your thoughts in the comments. Thank you for watching. Feel free to like the video if you did indeed like the video, and yeah, stay groovy, friends.